coronavirus.
It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
That intro fucks me up.
So that's the virus, pretty much. Even though that's the crazy thing what's happening, we have to be concerned with all these voting stuff and all the racial stuff. But you know what? There's still corona out there. Don't get that rona. Don't get the COVID-19 in your lungs and your eyes. So that's what's going on right now. And a situation happening. I am born and raised in New York City. Dr. Virginius is born and raised in New Virginius, and there's a lot of talk right now saying that the city is dying. The city, New York City, is being stabbed in the face and left, in the Times Square alleyway. That's what people think is happening in New York City. Apparently, there's a lot of vacant buildings, apartments in Manhattan because landlords don't want to lower the rent, so they can just have those empty buildings. Whatever you do, you landlords.
Over 13,000 vacancies.
Yeah. They expect someone to pay $3,000 to sleep in the closet with a hot plate. Good luck. So that's what's happening in New York City right now. And but at the same time, if Phil can drop this next clip, I don't know. I think this attitude by New York City being dead is really exaggerated. So it's exaggerated claim that New York City is dead, no matter what's happening. I mean, other big cities like London pretty much was getting bombed by the Germans in the 40s. That's people definitely thought that city was going to be no more after that. But
real estate agencies see a record rise in rental vacancies, up 122% from last year. That's 13,000 empty apartments. And as that goes on, we've got real violence in the street.
That's so random.
Increase in shootings.
What?
This is New York over the past month. Up more than 176%. That's shootings in New York compared to last year. Again, we'll show you 6th Avenue, right in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, right before lunch hour, and it is empty.
I think, Waffles, you should do a meal plan. You should set up your meals so that you're getting healthy meals at any time of the day.
Says this.
If you're preparing your own meals,
New Yorker, author of that book,
you don't have to rely on garbage in the convenience stores.
Let's get right at it. You say dead.
So this guy right here thinks New York City is dead.
You got to explain that.
Which is ridiculous.
Well, look at what you just said about 6th Avenue.
You got to hear his reasons. Here's his reasons why he thinks he's dead.
Something like 30 to 50% of the restaurants in New York City are probably already out of business and they're not coming back. Now the offices.
So 50 to 70% will still be here, which is still too many fucking restaurants.
There's a lot of restaurants in New York City. There's a lot of restaurants. There's restaurants where there shouldn't be restaurants in New York City.
I think there's a restaurant in my bathroom.
They want employees.
They make tacos from 3 to 9 p.m. and fucking in my foyer pretty much. So this is
the economic ecosystem of New York City, the restaurants, transportation, office buildings, commercial real estate. But what happens to the tax base when all of your workers can now live anywhere they want in the country, not even the suburbs?
Well, workers with a lot of money can do that.
Miami, Austin,
what are you talking about?
They're leaving the city because
what he's saying is that your Starbucks barista can just work from home.
There's still millions of people who are not going to leave New York City. This is a ridiculous claim that New York City's dead. New York City is here because everyone's broke and we're still here. We can't go anywhere. What are you talking about,
you were just quoting. What's going to reverse that? It's only going to get worse.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think it's very sad, James. I mean,
it's sad.
I've lived in the New York area for 40 years. I love
sideshow Bob looking motherfucker.
I've lived in London. I've lived in all over the world in great cities. And this is a great city. And it grieves me to hear you say it's dead forever.
And the thing is, Fox News and Fox Business, they New York.
They hate New York City. But their headquarters are in New York City. They're the hypocrites. Fox News, they're probably recording that in New York City live right now, saying this city's shitty. It's like we get my Uber and go to
New York
down to Hell's Kitchen. What are you talking about, bro?
I mean, this dude looks like he's doing this interview from a Midtown hotel elevator. So
throughout the entire country now, it's not going to be isolated to just one or two spots like New York or San Francisco or LA. Everybody's going to have opportunity. But the reality is remote. What makes this different now is bandwidth is 10 times faster than it was in 2008. So people really can work remotely now and have an increase in productivity.
James? I mean, the guy working at the supermarket, working at the restaurant,
yeah. Can we pause this? Can we pause this because I don't want to miss what else they have to say.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just want to talk about the fear mongering that they got going on right now. Yeah, because again, Messiah and I, we are New York City natives. We've been in this city almost our entire lives. And from my perspective, my own personal perspective, we'll get Messiah's in a second. From my personal perspective, New York City has been way overcrowded. We've had too many people packed into a really tiny space. So if 10% of the people leaves, that means the rest of the 90% will actually be able to breathe. So if 30 to 50% of the restaurants go away, that means there are still 50 to 70% of the restaurants left. Yeah, I think that is like we have restaurants next door to a restaurant, next door to a restaurant, next to a Dwayne Reed, next to a T-Mobile and a Chase, next to a restaurant.
We have there's like a thing about bodegas. You walk into like a Mexican bodega, and like it's like, and you walk in the back and you get a taco without. It's no signs, no nothing, but that's a restaurant right there with a couple of chairs. This is what kind of cities I like. Not just New York City, but all cities. But New York City is just having a big city with all that kind of stuff packed together,
And 13,000 vacancies, right?
Yeah.
What is that going to do? It's going to cause a COVID-19 induced correction in the housing market.
Yeah.
The apartments in this city, the rent is too damn high.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was just, the rents are just going up and up and up. People are not able to even afford them. We got people living on the streets. Yeah. So if you bring the rents down in Manhattan, that means the rents in Brooklyn come down. That means the rents in Queens come down. That means the gentrification is slowed in the Bronx. People are going to be less likely to have to be kicked from the neighborhoods that they've been in for generations.
Yeah.
So they're spelling all of this gloom and doom about, this great city of New York is overcrowded and it's dirty, and everybody's afraid that everybody's going to rape and rob them at every second of every day. If we cut down the population by just 10%, traffic is going to speed up. Rush hour is going to suck less. Like nobody's going to do this mass exodus of New York City. New York City is still the capital of planet Earth. It will always be that. It's just that people have more options. Things will get a little bit less congested, and the city may be more enjoyable to live in.
Yeah.
What do you think, Messiah?
But I also feel like, I totally agree with you, Dr. They were genius. But I also feel that the people are like making an argument, like in the Fox Business kind of like advertisement or wherever that was, news. Like, people like that, I feel like their kind of culture, their kind of like lifestyles, like this, their lifestyles kind of drived on like going out, going to this, going to that, being exclusive. And since all that kind of stuff is like totally non-existent, they feel like, the city's garbage. But in reality, it's deep. New York City is also about, finding your own creativity, finding your own way to have fun in New York City, because it's such a big city. You can find your own way to hang out and not have to be crowded in a crowded bar, breathing people's air. And people always find ways to hang out in New York City, no matter what time period in history has been. So, it's like, this argument that, I can't have my nighttime lifestyle anymore. I'm out of here. Those are those people who can like fly to Cape Cod or whatever. They can like do that kind of lifestyle over there, but they can't do it in New York City right now. And that's why I feel people who's driving this argument about New York City's dead.
I mean, think about New York City in the 1970s. I mean, it's before your time, before my time.
Yeah.
But a lot of people talked about how in the 70s and 80s you couldn't walk through Times Square because it was too dangerous, and they had like naked women everywhere selling their pussy, and they had peep shows here, and people, they called like the west side of Manhattan, they called it Hell's Kitchen. Yeah. Because everybody thought that the neighborhood was so horrible. That wasn't that long ago. New York City is never going to die unless the aliens come. Yeah. like when the aliens get here and like blow up everything here, then New York City will be done. But not a second before that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being here on 9/11, just like the moment when the plane struck the buildings and you were there in Manhattan. Like,
yeah, you would think New York City would have died then if it was going to die.
Yeah, like people thought they're going to drop atomic weapons on New York City. People didn't know what was going to happen after New York City, but New York City is pretty resilient. And you look at, even go beyond New York City and just look at historical history. I mean, there were pandemics in the past, that urban centers that were ravaged by like the plague and stuff like that. Those service centers still exist in some ways. They're still, so it's like this, these places bob and weave, and they say that the city's dead is just for people that like buy land for cheap, pretty much buy property for cheap. Those are the people.
And that's kind of what I hope happens. I'm not even going to front. As somebody who's been disenfranchised in the city for nearly all my life, and, having the ambition that I've, developed over the last several years, I'm looking at this as an opportunity. You get the rents down, then you start looking for better proximity. You start looking for better quality, because the thing is, you have all of these luxury high rises that they built thinking that this never ending influx of rich people was just never going to end. So they built all of these massive luxury apartment buildings that were already mostly empty before the Rona, before the mass exodus of all of these rich people. They weren't filling up these units anyway.
No, they were. Yeah, before that they weren't filling up.
So now we're getting into a situation where, I mean, you might as well not have the motherfucker empty.
Yeah,
let us get up in there, and live nice lives. You know what I'm saying? Let's get it.
Yeah. And then before we move to our next clip, I just want to one point is just like the requirements to get an apartment in the city is absurd. You have to make. Why do they think someone making $85,000 a year with a credit score 800 wants to move into a studio apartment for $1,600? Like this is.
And they're not even going for 16. It's like 2,600 now.
Yeah, it's like why would someone making that much money even want to like do that? So these weird requirements for rent and like it's just like unattainable stuff. But hopefully COVID-19 forces this kind of like stuff that like it feels like rent's going down $50, $25 a week almost. If you look at the listings, and see what happens as we go into the winter and the fall. So we'll drop this.
It's unfortunate, but I'm taking advantage of it.
Yeah, pretty much. So we're gonna